If you're ready to take Airbnb to the next level in 2020, then this episode is for you. Welcome into the Fearless Flipping Podcast. Like, subscribe, comment below. We are ready to get to it with Jasper Ribbers. If you want financial freedom, time freedom, and want to leave a legacy for generations to come, you probably have heard real estate investing is the place to do that. How do you get started? What do you have to do? When's the right time? If you are looking for those answers, you've come to the right place. My name's Kyle Stanley, and this is Fearless Flipping. My mission is to help you learn this business and conquer real estate investing. Happy New Year, Fearless Flipping community. I hope you had a great one. I hope Santa brought you lots of presents. I hope he brought you real estate deals like he did for me. Very excited about a new one coming up and excited about the 2020 year. So I hope that you have your goals written down. I've got a challenge for you today. As always, I always encourage people to comment on our YouTube channel. And if you're listening on the podcast, to subscribe, review, and also to rate the show. But when you review, share with us what you're learning from the show. Today's reviewer is Noah Sky H. He says, I like the content. All the interviews are on point and helpful for real estate investing, motivation, and information. Thank you so much, Noah. I'm glad you're getting something out of this. And if you comment on this week's episode or subscribe and review and leave some sort of review that shares what you're learning, then we are going to mention you on the next show as well. But my question today, for those of you that are listening on or watching on the YouTube channel specifically, and you see this question right here, what is your 2020 exit strategy? Are you going to focus on flips? Are you going to focus on wholesaling, Airbnb, buy and hold? What does that look like for you? So comment below on the YouTube channel. Share with us what your exit strategy is for 2020, and we want to know what is exciting you the most. Now, we are getting ready for a really fun episode with a friend of mine, Jasper Ribbers, who, if you haven't already subscribed to his podcast, you're going to want to after listening to this episode with him. He has a podcast, a book, an academy, all based around get paid for your pad. So we are focusing on short-term rentals today, Airbnb specifically. This guy is the master of Airbnb, and he knows exactly what to do, how to help you get to starting an Airbnb, taking it to the next level, and that's why I wanted to have him on the show all the way from Holland. So enjoy the show, enjoy his accent, and enjoy the information that he gives us right here on the Fearless Flipping Podcast. All right, coming in from the other side of the world, it is Jasper Ribbers, the host of the Get Paid for Your Pad podcast. Jasper, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me, Kyle. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Hey, before we get started, I always love asking this question, and I don't mean to just throw this on you because I didn't prep you for this, but what's your wildest, we're talking today about Airbnb specifically. Maybe what's your wildest Airbnb or real estate investing story? Maybe a story with a tenant or something that just kind of for you stands out as one of the craziest ones.
Well, I got to go with a guest that I hosted who was actually from Canada. But this was my first negative, quote unquote negative, because in the end it wasn't really a negative experience. But at the time it really felt like a negative experience. As a host, when you start out, like you're very excited, and I had a bit of an ego in what I was doing, as in like I was trying to do a really, really good job, and I was getting great reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was very happy with my little business. This is back in 2012. And then suddenly I got one guest who literally sent me a message the morning after he had arrived saying that my apartment was completely unacceptable, that he demanded immediate refund of his entire stay, or he would contact Airbnb and have my listing removed. And so that was
Okay.
that was a bit of a cold shower to wake up to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in the end of the day, it was actually a useful experience, because it's an experience that you're going to have at some point. And I did, and although I think he was being completely unreasonable, but at the same time, he did actually have some valid points. So I ended up making some improvements to my experience that I was offering based on his feedback, actually. So in the end of the day, it was all good. But at the time, I was steaming.
Oh yeah.
I was about to go over and and get in a fight with this guy.
Well, I mean, it's a review. It's a personal attack, right? I mean, that's the way it feels. You know, we get these or we get these reviews, we take it personally. And at the end of the day, I just think that some people are just always going to find the negatives in everything, no matter if you have a perfect place or if your place is, you know, just semi-okay. They're always going to find the bad stuff instead of the good.
Yeah, absolutely. And, this person clearly was expecting a 5-star hotel type of experience. It was the first time that he stayed in an Airbnb. And so, it was just a matter of like, expectations that weren't quite in line with what I was offering. And so, in the end of the day, it's really no big deal, like you said.
Yeah.
But at the time, it really felt like somebody just stabbed me in the back with a dagger.
Yeah. I know the feeling. I think anyone who's been doing Airbnb has the feeling too. And if they haven't got that yet, it will be coming. So,
Yep,
but hey,
it will.
Jasper, you've got an awesome podcast with the Get Paid for Your Pad. I've been listening to it for a while. I know a lot of people that have actually been listening to it from what it sounds like, a couple of years. And so a lot of people know your podcast and all the awesome value that you were providing, but not everyone knows your story. So that's why I'm excited to have you on the show today, is to get your side of the story of when you started in 2012. Take us back to then. What were you doing and what attracted you to this new thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So back in 2012, I had quit my corporate job in 2010. I'd been traveling around the world for a couple of years and I was running out of money. And so I didn't want to go back to corporate. And so I was thinking, what can I do with my apartment that I owned? And fortunately, I used to work in finance and I'd saved up money to pay off the mortgage. So essentially, I had one apartment, about 800 square feet in the center of Amsterdam. That was my one asset. And I was thinking, how can I use this asset to support a living, to support a lifestyle of travel? Is that possible? And how do I do that? Now, at the time, I was renting it out long term. And I was making about 1,500 euros, which is a little bit meager to completely support yourself. And so I was looking for an alternative. But there was two other reasons why I wasn't happy with the long-term renting model. Number one, back in Amsterdam, it's very, very hard to get somebody out of your home if you want to use it again for yourself, even if you want to sell it or if you want to move back in. If that person doesn't want to leave, like it's very, very difficult to regain control of your property.
Right.
And number two, I wanted to kind of stay at my own home sometimes, and that's not possible when you have a long-term renter. So those are three reasons for me to seek an alternative. And I'd stayed at an Airbnb myself once, and so I thought, you know what, let's give it a shot. So that's what I did, June 2012.
Wow.
Still
Okay. And so
to this day.
when you started that, did you see immediate success? Was it a gradual climb? Talk to me about the beginning stages there.
Well, what should I say? It felt like a tremendous success from the get-go, because pretty much the moment I put it online, the bookings started coming in. What I didn't realize was that how much more I could be making. Right in the beginning, I was making maybe like 2,000, 2,500 a month with for me, that was a lot of money because, like I said, 1,500 was what I was getting from long-term renting. Plus I was able to stay at my own home, maybe like 2, 4 or 6 weeks out of the year. And so for me, making more money and being able to use my home and knowing that the guests are going to leave and I can, regain control of my property was a massive win for me. Right. But what I didn't know was that I could be making so much more. And that's not something that I found out in the years after, because at some point, I think in 2014 or 15 was my best year with that particular apartment. And my gross was over $60,000.
Wow.
So about 5,000 a month. Which was incredible, right? That was absolutely incredible. That really blew me away. But I wasn't aware that I could be making that much money when I first started.
Okay, so I have to, since you are in Holland, are we talking, when you say 60,000, are you talking euros, American dollars? What does that translate there?
Yeah, so that was dollars. I I was realizing that we're talking probably to American people,
Yeah.
but that's it. The difference isn't that huge. Like about 50,000 euros is $60,000 more or less.
Okay.
So the point is, I went from let's say in dollars, I went from, let's say, 1,700 long-term renting to about 3,000 a month initially for the first year and a
Right.
half or so. And then once I really started figuring out how to maximize income from my properties, really started understanding hospitality, then I was getting up to like 5,000 a month.
That's
So
awesome.
that really blew my mind,
So
because that was enough for me to live off.
that's wonderful. So you use that to be able to support that traveling lifestyle?
Yeah, absolutely. I realized that this could be a business for me. Just my little apartment. And so there was two realizations. Realization number one was I don't have to go back to corporate,
Hmm.
right? Because I'd rather live on $5,000 a month for the rest of my life, and do things that I really enjoy and have experience and be able to travel and everything, than going back to the office, because that
Mhm.
was something that I really did not want to do. Number two, of course, I had a lot of time on my hands, and so I decided to start this podcast. First, I published a book, right? Also called "Get Paid for Your Pad." And so that was the second realization, was like, hey, this is an amazing opportunity, and not a lot of people are aware of this, right? So not only can I now fully support myself, but also I can start educating other people on, how to do something similar, and, potentially building a business out of that. And that's basically what happened.
Okay. So you mentioned that you had this, if you want to call it epiphany, or these realizations that it really helped you to start maximizing and optimizing your listing. And you went from this about 2,500 to 3,000 to like now almost 5,000 a month. What was maybe one or two aha moments in that time to where it helped you to almost double your income?
Well, I'd say the first realization was that being fully booked doesn't mean you're maximizing profits,
Mm.
right? Because the way that I calculated my prices when I started, and when I started, we didn't have any technology. Right now there's all these like pricing apps that you can use, and all these like research, this data and stuff that you can buy. But back in the day, there was nothing, right? So I just looked at some other places around in my neighborhood and see what they were charging, and so I decided, okay, 150 a night sounds like a pretty good price. So for a long time, I was just charging 150 a night, the same price. Maybe I raised it a little bit in the summer, maybe over Christmas and stuff. And I was like fully booked, so I was like, great. But I didn't realize that I could actually raise the price and that it wouldn't hurt my occupancy, right? So I was just underpricing. So that was the first realization, that I could actually charge more, without it really hurting my occupancy. And then the second realization was that I started realizing that I wasn't just providing a place to sleep. I wasn't just providing a space. I was providing an experience. And so I realized that if I improve this experience that people have, then they're willing to pay more for it. And that improving the experience doesn't necessarily cost me any money, right? So things that I would do is, for example, I would send an online guidebook, right, with lots of pictures and kind of helping the guest look forward to the experience, and just presenting the information in a more digestible and more fun way. So that's something that I would get really good feedback on. I started connecting more with my guests and really thinking like, hey, who are these people? What do they want? What are they looking for? What are their plans in Amsterdam? How can I best serve them? How can I provide more value to them? How can I prepare the home so that it's set up for them, right? So it's little things like, if there's kids involved, I'd turn on my Xbox and turn on the TV, so that as soon as they arrive, I'll be like, hey guys, do you want to play some computer games? And then the kids would be like, yay! And then the parents would be happy because they can, unpack their suitcase while the kids are happy. And you know what I mean? It's like really getting in a mindset of, I'm not just providing a space. I'm providing like an experience, and if I improve that experience, then people will be willing to pay more for it.
That's awesome. I think there's so many good things to take away from that, but the one thing I want to focus on is understanding your guests, who they are, what they want. And I think that is not a cookie cutter thing. I don't think that the guests in Amsterdam are looking for the same things as the guests in Fresno, California. When it comes down to it, we have found that most of our guests in this town are looking for either a place to sleep while they're here for work, or a place to sleep while they go and visit mom and dad with their 2 kids and they can't fit in grandma and grandpa's house now because they've got too big of a family. And so it's those things, just like what you talked about, having, like, for us, every single one of our Airbnbs has to have a work desk because we know we're going to get tons of business people in town. Every single one of our Airbnbs has to have kid-friendly board games because we know that sometimes the families are going to be there and they're going to have some downtime. And, oh, look, there's Jenga. Oh, look, there's Monopoly, things like that. So in your place of the world, and you've got a lot of listings all over the world, what are some maybe unique things that you provide outside of the guidebook, maybe like actually in the Airbnb, that makes you different than your competition?
Well, so the place that I was renting out in Amsterdam, what I realized was that the number one thing that people were looking for was they wanted to experience Amsterdam like a local, right? I mean, Amsterdam has a big name, right? And so it's kind of opposite of what you were talking about, right? When people come to Amsterdam, and I was hosting mostly American people and Canadian people, and sometimes people from Russia, sometimes people from China. But what they all had in common was that, they heard about Amsterdam. And so they wanted to come over and experience what Amsterdam is like, but they didn't want to just do the touristic things. They didn't want to do what all the other tourists are doing. They wanted something special. They wanted something more local. They wanted to feel like, what is the real Amsterdam? Because everybody knows about the red light district. Everybody knows about, you can smoke weed. Everybody knows about these things, right? But what I notice is that people really just want to understand, like, what are Dutch people doing in Amsterdam? Like, where did they go, right? And so I think what I really materialized on was, providing that local touch. And so I would communicate a lot with my guests, prior to their stay, so they would get to know me a little bit. And that was even part of the experience because, and then people feel like, whoa, we're communicating with somebody who's actually from Amsterdam, like how does that person communicate? Like, what, what I mean? People are curious
Right.
about those things. And so, so that's that's the main thing. Other than that, I think, just providing a lot of local recommendations. And so I had, I had my favorite restaurant, my favorite coffee shop, my favorite lunch place, breakfast. I would send my guests always screenshots of Foursquare. So obviously I provide the guidebook, but then, like, the day before they arrive, I would send them some specific places that weren't in my guidebook, right? So I'd say, like, hey, I noticed you arrive in the morning. Well, there's a lot of recommendation in my guidebook, but you know what? Like, this awesome little breakfast place just opened up, and I want to make sure that you guys, go check it out. And I'd send it to them on WhatsApp, right? So that feels a little bit more personal than just even the general guidebook that they're getting.
That's awesome. I think the biggest thing that I'm hearing here is just personal touch and showing, like you said, some of these things don't cost extra money. It's just costing a little bit of your time to take that extra step to make them feel both welcomed and also like, hey, Jasper is thinking about me and wants me to have a great experience. And at the end of the day, okay, so the toaster wasn't working, or, something wasn't working. And now, because they've come to like you so much, those things don't really matter as much because they feel like they have that personal touch. So
exactly.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love
for
that.
sure.
Hey, Fearless Flipping community, we are taking a quick break from the podcast to talk about Airbnb. For those of you that don't know, I have built much of my residual income around Airbnb. Despite a lot of other investors being really excited about long-term renters. I was not. I saw an opportunity with Airbnb to get to my goals faster, to get more cash flow, and to pay off my houses quicker too. So instead of being really happy like a lot of other investors are with $200 to $300 of cash flow every single month, I've turned my renters and rentals into over $1,000 on average of cash flow every single month. So if you want to learn more about Airbnb, my systems, where I pick my Airbnbs, how I communicate with guests. Maybe you've already got Airbnb as a business on the side right now, but you want to take it to the next level. I am absolutely here to help you. You can book a free consultation with me about Airbnb. Learn more by booking at fearlessflipping.com/consultation, and you get me for 30 minutes for free. That's right, 30 minutes absolutely free. And that's once again, fearlessflipping.com/consultation. And I'm looking forward to helping you conquer Airbnb investing.
I was just going to mention, and this is something that I learned, is that if you build a strong relationship with your guests, they're going to be forgiving, right? Whereas if you build no relationship, then they're going to be critical, right? So just like you said, and so building a relationship definitely is really important.
I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing that guests just want is communication. And if they can get a quick response from you, and whether that's on text or over the phone, and you put a little bit of care into it and not just give them a quick, here's the answer. It's, hey, thanks for asking that question. Here's the answer. Let us know if there's anything else you need. We want you to have a wonderful stay. That goes a long way. So,
Absolutely.
let me ask you this. You mentioned something a little bit earlier that has a lot of people asking me this question. And it was, back in 2012 to 2014, a lot of people did not know about Airbnb. I didn't even find out about it until the end of 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And now today you look left and right. And I mean, here in Fresno, we've had a 300% growth over the last year and a half of Airbnbs. There used to be right around 150. Now there's almost 500 Airbnbs in Fresno alone, which in a 1 million person city is still a lot of room to grow. But, there's a lot of people that are now saying, well, what if the market gets saturated, or what if the city cracks down on things, and it's holding them back from even starting this journey? So what are your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely very correct. The landscape has changed, right? The industry is maturing. And so what I did back in 2012, I don't think that's possible anymore. Maybe in some markets, but in most markets, you can't just create a listing, sit back, and let the bookings roll in. That doesn't work anymore, right? And so yeah, it's gotten more competitive. Number two, we have to deal with regulations now. Like back in 2012, nobody knew what Airbnb was, and so nobody created regulations around it. So it was a great time.
Of course.
So now, the industry has matured, and so now there's still opportunities, but you have to educate yourself. You have to be very professional about the way that you run your business, or the way that you run your hospitality unit, even if it's like one listing. You have to understand how to use Airbnb, how to use the system, how to get your listing to the first page of the search results. You have to understand everything that we talked about so far, like how do you create an experience that people really rave about. You have to understand who are the people visiting your city, how do we cater to them. You have to understand what your competition is doing. You have to use technology to be efficient, and there's a lot of things that you have to do now in order to get group results, like any other industry, really, right? I mean, if I were to tell you that tomorrow I'm opening up a restaurant, and I would tell you that I have no experience and I'm not a chef, and I'm going to cook myself and I'm going to run everything myself, and I would ask you, what's the chance of being successful? You'd probably give me less than 1%, I'd say. And so, and that's, I wouldn't say it's that competitive in the short-term rental industry. I mean, it's definitely very possible still to do really, really well, but it's not low. It's no longer this like this opportunity that everybody can just jump into and list any space, and completely have no
Mhm.
education and still do well, right? Because that was the case um, 7 years ago, and that's definitely, those times are over.
I think you can equivalent that to like flipping a house in real estate. There back in 2000, 2009 to 2014, like anyone who was doing it was making tons of money because there was little competition. The mindset amongst everyone was, why would I buy a piece of real estate when the market is so bad right now? And then there was that few small percentage that said, no, that's why we want to buy these houses, because we can improve them and bring up the value with just a little bit of work. And then everyone started catching on to that. And then you bring someone like me into the mix who's new to it in 2019 and sees that there's so much more competition, but there's still opportunity. You just have to make yourself different. You have to make yourself better. You have to
Hmm.
bring yourself
Yeah.
above your competition in order to succeed. And not everyone is ready to jump in and do something like that for fear reasons, for lack of confidence, for a lot of different reasons. But yes, just like what you said, it's tougher today, but it is still incredibly possible to make a great living on Airbnb. I'm living proof. You're living proof. A lot of people are living proof of that. And so, what I want to really kind of transition here with you, Jasper, is you and I were talking right before we started this interview. You have a really interesting method here, which is there's some different countries that you are going towards in terms of not only doing Airbnb, but also purchasing. And a lot of our audience is also looking at not just Airbnb, but real estate investing.
Hmm.
So give us a little bit of insight on how you are using some strategies outside of your market.
Yeah, for sure. So the background is that I had my apartment in Amsterdam, and around 2015 there started to regulations started to pop up. I kind of rode the wave for a while, but at some point it was no longer a valid option to rent out on Airbnb. Because Airbnb actually limited the amount of days in Amsterdam that you could rent out to
Hmm.
60.
Wow.
So it was
That's
no
tough.
option for me anymore. So I sold the apartment, and so then the question was, what am I gonna do with this money? How am I gonna reinvest it? Um, and so the options are, I either invest in the Western world and get a mortgage, um, or I go to outside of the Western world to emerging markets, where I'll invest cash. I'll just buy with cash, right? Um, and so there's pros and cons to both. I chose to go outside. I chose to go to emerging markets for a number of reasons. Number one, I had been living out of my suitcase for about 7 years, and I've traveled to all these amazing destinations, and so
Nice.
I felt like I knew a lot of like really cool places that not a lot of people really knew about. And so I figured I had a little bit of a competitive advantage, because I had all this travel experience. And then secondly, I wanted to buy properties in places where I really enjoyed being myself.
Hmm.
And I thought it'd be a really cool idea to buy free properties, rent them all out, and then stay at each property for a certain amount of time throughout the year, and the rest of the time I could rent them out.
That's
I
awesome.
thought it was a cool idea, and so that's what I did. So I ended up purchasing a 2-bedroom penthouse in Cali in Colombia. I purchased a studio in a condominium tower on the beach in southern Thailand, and I purchased a studio villa in a resort. That's a managed resort on a small island in the Philippines.
Wow.
So it was a bit scary. I can't say it was fearless, because you know what I mean. Like when you're sending like $100,000 over to the Philippines, hoping that 2 years later you have a beautiful little studio villa in a resort, and it's generating cash flow. That's a bit scary,
Of course.
honestly. But you know what? The results so far are pretty good, I would say. I mean, I was expecting some stuff to happen. Um, I was thinking, if I invest in Colombia, Thailand, and the Philippines, the chance that everything is smooth sailing throughout the whole process is pretty small. But yeah, so the Colombian property has been on Airbnb for about a year now, and it's been ROIing really nicely. I'd
Good.
say I'm at about 10% after all costs,
Okay.
and so I think that's pretty good, cash, on cash without any leverage. Um, the Studio Villa in the Philippines, that was delayed a couple times because of typhoons and all sorts of stuff. It's a tiny little island, and so all the building materials have to be shipped in on these small little boats. And um, I'm still confident that it's going to turn out as a good investment over the long run. It is open right now, but you can actually stay there if you want. And then the one in Thailand is projected to open up in February of 2020.
Okay.
So I just saw some pictures. It looks like they're almost done. So you know what, like, that's pretty good. I mean, the fact that they're even there, that I know a lot of people who've got like scammed out of their money in these countries.
Gotcha. Ugh.
So yeah,
Yikes.
that's kind of like that's the deal.
So my question there, and I get this from a lot of people that are looking to invest in Airbnbs, being either silent partners or maybe being a team member in some way or another. The question is always, how are you going to manage something when you don't live there? How do you answer that?
Yeah, exactly. So, well, there's a couple options, right? So right now, and I guess that's a good thing compared to 7 years ago. Right now, there's professional property management companies pretty much everywhere, right? And so you can find one of these companies in whatever location you're looking to invest, and you can have them do it, right? And so that's the route that I took in Colombia. I work with a property management company there called Life Afar. I've known these guys since 2014, and they're doing an excellent job. I'm very happy with them.
And
Um,
so pause really quick there. When you say property
sure.
management company, are they making it so you don't even have to manage your calendar or talk to guests, or like how does that look exactly?
Well, so they prefer to do everything, but I'm a bit of a different case, I guess, because I kind of, because I'm producing content and I'm
Right.
educating on Airbnb, I do kind of want to be involved and see what's going on.
Hmm.
And obviously, like, I'm going to give them feedback on the listing and the messages and the processes and everything, which
Hmm.
maybe is a bit annoying for them. But you know, but yeah, typically a property management company would be looking to take over everything, um, and just send you a check at the end of the month, essentially. But there are some management companies that offer like some hybrid models where they say, okay, we'll do the cleaning and we'll do the check-ins and everything, but you can do the messaging yourself. Or some of them, they'll take care of the online part and they let
Hmm.
you handle the cleaning and the check-ins and whatnot. So there's different ways, but I'd say most property management companies that I know, they kind of prefer the client or the property owner, to sort of like not get involved, because it can be a bit annoying for them if somebody's looking over their shoulder all the time and providing feedback all the time and asking questions and whatnot. So
Absolutely. Okay, cool. Well, hey, last question here, and then we're going to wrap this thing up. But, you mentioned that back in 2012, you were looking to fund your traveling lifestyle. And it sounds like you did that for at least a few years. But what is life like today for you, and how much do you attribute that to short-term rentals like Airbnb?
yeah, I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for Airbnb, I'd probably be sitting in an office right now,
Mm.
working a finance job, like I used to do. So I guess for me, the initial way that Airbnb changed my life was me being able to support myself renting out my flat in Amsterdam. But that led into me creating these educational companies, which is now my main business and my main income. Is it's teaching other people how to make money with Airbnb, whether it's renting out a property that you own, or managing other people's properties, or leasing and releasing on Airbnb, whatever model that people are wanting to do. I now educate them on that, and so this entire business that I'm running now, that I'm spending 90% of my time on, wouldn't have existed if I didn't start hosting back in 2012.
That's awesome. Well, you have been a huge help for thousands of people that have tuned into your podcast, bought your book, used you. So how can our audience, aside from the podcast, which is just as simple as them typing in "get paid for your pad," what other ways can they connect with you, or what other resources can they get from you?
Yeah, so I've been doing this for almost 5.5 years now, I think. So I've managed to create quite a lot of content, but I'll try and keep it simple. But like you said, there's the podcast. I've published over 300 episodes now. You can find those on getpaidforyourpad.com or on iTunes or Stitcher and all those places. There's also my blog, which is also called Get Paid for Your Pad. So there's a lot of information there. You can sign up for my newsletter. But aside from Get Paid for Your Pad, which really focuses on people, how to get started, and people that want to have like a couple listings, but we also have a coaching program called STR Profit Academy, and that's a coaching program that is geared towards people who want to either start managing other people's properties, and they want to scale that. So we have some students that, they have a couple listings, but they want to grow it to like 25, 50. They want to turn it into a full-time business. And then we have a mastermind that's called the STR Legends. So that's for people that have 25 or more units. We throw events every 3 to 6 months. We throw an event, and we get about 25 large operators together to mastermind on their challenges. We bring some people from the industry together as well. So, depending on where you are, what you want to do, what your goals are, you can look at these different resources. But if you have any questions, feel free to email me at jasper@getpaidforyourpad.com.
Perfect. And we will have all of that in the show notes. And it sounds like my new goal is to get into that mastermind of yours. So, hey, Jasper.
It's going to be fun, man.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Jasper, thanks so much. Before we log off here, any last bits of advice for our audience?
Well, your podcast is called Fearless Flipping, and you told me that one of your goals is to really help people get over their fear and start taking action, and not letting people be limiting themselves. And that's something that I think is really important as well. So I totally support you on that. And so I would say, be okay with the fact that when you're trying something new, it's going to feel uncomfortable, and realize that fear is there for a reason. It's a survival mechanism that we have developed through evolution, and so it's trying to keep us safe. That fear that you're feeling is there for a reason. So I'd say don't resist it, accept that it's there, but take action anyway, and don't worry about the results. Just take action. From action comes a result, comes progress, comes learning, comes experience. So every single action step that you take is going to contribute to your future success. And if you keep taking consistent action, then the question is not whether you're going to be successful. The question is, when are you going to be successful? Yep. But you will be successful eventually.
Good stuff, man. Very good stuff. Hey, Jasper, thanks so much for helping our audience today to conquer Airbnb investing. Show notes, fearlessflipping.com/get paid for your pad. Again, get paid for your pad. You will have all the information there. You'll have the opportunity to see all those links and ways to connect with Jasper, like he mentioned, and go subscribe to his YouTube channel, his podcast. If you're serious about learning more about Airbnb, subscribe to us here, especially on the YouTube channel. I'm always talking about Airbnb and how you can take Airbnb to the next level to actually create a business, not just to make a listing, but create a business with Airbnb. It's been fruitful for me. I know it can be fruitful for a lot of people with the right systems and the right teaching that's in place. So no matter if you get it from me or from Jasper, the important thing is that you learn this and learn it the right way so that you can conquer Airbnb investing. We will see you next time.